Good evening, it's time for the news on Times Television, TTV, and here with me, Ronald Mpaso. First, the headlines. Parliament has passed the controversial Labour Relations Amendment Bill as opposition legislators storm out in protest. Ministry of Health announces enforcement of Level 3 COVID-19 restriction measures as cases continue to rise. And organizations in the education sector bemoan the country's continued dependence on donors to run the sector. We have these and other stories. Stay with us. In our first story, Parliament today passed the controversial Labour Relations Amendment Bill without opposition Democratic Progressive Party lawmakers who stormed out of the House in protest against what they described as a bad law. Briefing reporters soon after walking out of the House, leader of opposition Kwagwanji said they stormed out of the House in solidarity with Malawians. But speaking after the bill was passed, leader of the House, Richard Chimwendo, blamed the Democratic Progressive Party for absconding on its duties. Chimwendo explains.
Labour Relations Act guarantees a freedom for somebody else to go on strike. What we are saying is that a strike must have a limit. You cannot just go on strike forever. You must have a time to sit down with your employer. You must have a time to sit down with the labor union. They must come in. But what we see is not that. Somebody absconds work for 1.5 months and they still want the very same employer to go and pay them. There's no investor who can come in this country with such a type of a law. If somebody wants to make sure that they're making business, they can't come with such a type of a law. This bill, if you look at very positively, is going to benefit the employer, it's going to benefit the labor unions, it's going to benefit everyone else, and there's going to be productivity in this country.
Leader of the House, Richard Chimwendo. The Ministry of Health has announced that the government will, from Friday, reintroduce stringent COVID-19 restrictions as Malawi enters Level 3 of the COVID pandemic. Briefing reporters in Lilongwe today, Health Minister Kumbize Chiponda said the reintroduction of the stringent containment measures has been necessitated by a sharp rise in COVID positive figures and deaths since 1st June. More in this report.
Briefing reporters in Lilongwe on Wednesday afternoon, Kandodo Chiponda said currently the country has a total of 109 active cases that are hospitalized in the country's treatment units. She said government is aware that the reintroduction of the stringent measures will cause some pain on people's lives, but that government wants to save the lives of Malawians. Among others, the conditions will see the introduction of a curfew from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. and that all political party rallies will be banned. The measures will also see the number of people allowed to an indoor gathering, such as churches, weddings and other gatherings, trimmed to 50. Outdoor meetings will have a maximum of 100 people. Kandodo Chiponda explains.
We keep mentioning this because these are still the only measures which we can use to protect ourselves or to protect each other. There are no new measures at all. Where everywhere else globally around the world, these are still the measures which we have to use to prevent the further transmission of the COVID-19.
Health expert Maziko Matemba hailed government for reintroducing the measures which he described as long overdue. According to Matemba, the measures were supposed to be reintroduced some weeks ago when the country started registering more COVID-19 cases. Economic think tank the Center for Research and Consultancy said the restrictions show that government is balancing health and economic interests. Center for Research and Consultancy Director Miriwad Tobias said it is clear that the measures have allowed businesses to continue while observing the prevention measures.
Meanwhile, COVID-19 has hit 11 children from different nationalities at Zodiak refugee camp in Doha. The camp's clinical officer in charge for the isolation unit, Henry Ladi, has confirmed the development. Rebecca Chimjeka has compiled this report, read in the studio by Wezi Gausi.
The COVID-19 attack follows the return of over 300 refugees to the camp last month from various parts of the country where they were running businesses. Minister of Homeland Security spokesperson Andrew Nyondo confirmed the return of over 300 refugees were reported back to the camp last month. Government gave the refugees and asylum seekers who left the camp until April 28, 2021 to return. Government says out of 2,000 refugees who were living among the communities outside the camp posed a danger to national security. Chairperson of Refugees and Asylum Seekers, Prasid Bisinga, says refugees who returned to the camp were affected. A Rwandan refugee from Zarega camp, Abina Joshua Reke, says currently space at the camp exposed them to COVID-19. Malawi currently hosts close to 50,000 refugees, and most of them come from Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda, Burundi, Ethiopia, and Somalia.
As the country commemorated its 57th independence anniversary, organizations in the education sector have bemoaned Malawi's continuous dependence on donors to run the sector. This comes as the country has close to 5 million illiterate adults and over 2 million children of primary and secondary school going age out of school. Wezi Gausi has a report.
Country Director for Education Limbani Sapato says 57 years down the line, around 70% of education development budget is heavily dependent on donors. He says Malawi 2063, just like Vision 2020, calls for self-reliance, but with business as usual approach for education system.
Although we achieved self-rule politically, we still have a number of challenges economically, which are also affecting the education sector. The country is too much dependent on donors.
Recently, Parliament approved about 1.9 trillion kwacha 2021-2022 financial year budget, which allocated at least 327 billion for education, an allocation that is just 50% of the 650 billion estimate in the National Education Sector Plan for 2021-2022. Minister of Education spokesperson Chikondi Chimara asked for more time to give his comment.
Auction Holdings Limited Group has announced that it will close down 3 of its 7 companies and lay off about 480 workers in the process due to financial challenges. The companies to be closed are AHL Commodities Exchange, City Africa Limited, and AHL Chemicals and Steel Limited. The company has further disclosed that Malawi Leaf might also be closed depending on the outcomes of discussions currently underway. Matthews Kasanda has a report.
AHL Group is closing the 4 companies because of financial woes that originated from 2017 when one of its companies, Malawi Leaf, registered a 42 billion kwacha loss. AHL Group Acting Chief Executive Officer Alfred Nkono says the group will retrench 61% of 787 of its employees as part of the restructuring process. Nkono revealed this on Wednesday when the Reserve Bank of Malawi, RBM, quizzed the group on the 3.2 billion kwacha pension arrears. The 3.2 billion kwacha AHL arrears are part of the 26.9 billion kwacha pension arrears different employers across the country are yet to remit. Nkono says AHL Group Board has approved the restructuring, which will include settling of the pension arrears.
This is being done in a bid to keep the group going because in the current status, the group is technically insolvent.
Meanwhile, the central bank has given AHL Group 21 days to settle the arrears. Paul Nyirenda is Reserve Bank of Malawi Chief Examiner Non-Prudential Compliance in the Pension and Insurance Supervision Department.
We came here basically to deliver an administrative penalty, which is in form of a direction. We have given them 21 days to clear the arrears, failure which we are going to take them to court.
RBM published names of non-complying employers 2 years ago, forcing some employers to settle their arrears.
Civil society organizations under the Anti-Corruption Alliance say despite the change in administration, corruption continues to be widespread in the country. Latest analysis from Transparency International indicates that Malawi's corruption rank rose from 123 in 2019 to 129 in 2020 out of the assessed 180 countries. Feston Marikezo has more in this report.
The CSO's Center for Human Rights and Rehabilitation, Youth and Society, Church and Society of the Livingstonia Synod, and Malawi Law Society said recovery of assets and money stolen from the government is also a far-fetched dream, as there is no clear mechanism for such. Among others, the CSOs say the government is silent on the 30 days amnesty, one of the Tonse Alliance flagship promises. Chairperson of the Alliance, who is also Executive Director for Church and Society, Moses Nkandawire, speaking at a media briefing in Mzuzu, alleged a veil of secrecy by the government in how it is running some affairs of the country. Nkandawire pointed out the public sector reforms report, which was done by Vice President Saulos Chilima, whose contents are still not known. Further, Nkandawire said the government needs to speed up the establishment of the financial courts, saying that way it would be easy to prosecute and recover stolen money.
So it's extremely important that we have to put in place strong measures to ensure that those who are involved in mismanaging resources are quickly investigated and, if possible, given the evidence that might be there, those individuals who are in the name of the rabble, then very quickly a broom has to come in and sweep that kind of a rabble. Unfortunately, these things are happening at a snail's pace.
Recently, Chief Justice Andrew Nyirenda said has instituted a task force to lay down foundation for the establishment of the Financial Crimes Court against corruption and theft of public resources. Addressing Parliament on May 12, 2021, President Lazarus Chakwera asked judiciary to expedite creation of the special court to efficiently dispose of cases of corruption and theft of public resources. Further, Chakwera said the government is committed to continue empowering the Anti-Corruption Bureau to recruit additional prosecutors and implement the National Anti-Corruption Strategy 2, which runs from 2019 to 2024, an effort to combat corruption entirely.
You're watching the news on Times Television, TTV. We now take a break. We'll be back shortly.
If there's one thing that all soaps do, it's wash. From buckets to basins, bathrooms to streams, and everything in between.
All soaps wash.
Yes, but Protex is different. Its reinvented formula with flaxseed oil boosts your skin's natural anti-germ defenses by 10 times more, protecting you against 99.9% of germs. So what keeps us healthy?
Protex!
Good health starts here.
Great! The chips is ready. It's so fast, unlike using charcoal or electricity. Charcoal takes long to light and cook. It is unhygienic and it leaves you dirty. And using charcoal also destroys the environment. And while I was using electricity, it would go off while still cooking. And besides, the cooker was taking too long to heat up, resulting to more time cooking and high bills. All in all, gas is convenient. It's safe and reliable. It can be used anytime, anywhere. It is affordable and environmentally friendly.
Be smart. Use gas today. Gas is safe, convenient, reliable. Malawi Energy Regulatory Authority MERA, regulating energy for sustainable development.
Welcome back. Minister of Energy Newton Kambala says the country has maintained the fuel prices for the past 4 months despite neighboring countries increasing theirs. Kambala said this today on the sidelines of the opening of the engine-branded Likuni service station by Vivo Energy Limited. More in this report by Emmanuel Simpokorwe, but read by Fari Banda.
Kambala said government has not increased the prices despite the recommendations from the Fuel Pricing Committee. He said South Africa and Tanzania fuel prices are higher than Malawi, although the country gets its fuel from their ports.
Considering that the people are under a lot of pressure in Malawi because of the COVID pandemic, he has always advised us that we should find means to find some resources to cushion the pricing. And this is the reason why, until now, our prices are kept as low as they are at the moment.
Vivo Energy Limited Managing Director Shabani Kayungilo says his company, which is in a shell and engine license, believes in providing high-quality solutions to motorists. Kayungilo says his company has invested in the country and expanded the retail network of engine-branded service stations.
This follows after our massive investment in reconstructing the site. For those who used to see this site up to December last year, they will appreciate the amount of investment that has gone into.
Vivo Energy is currently operating a network of 30 engine services stations across the country.
The Malawi University of Science and Technology has announced an ambitious plan to introduce an endowment fund. Addressing the press at the university's campus in Cholo District, Director of Finance and Investment MacDonald Heuge said the endowment is a permanent fund whose proceeds will be used for supporting student scholarship, innovation and research. Llewellyn Mpasa has filed this report, read by Elvis Hoahoa.
The endowment fund is an investment portfolio with the initial capital deriving from donors for managing and indefinitely perpetuating a pool of financial investments whose thrust is to increasing access, improving quality of education and ensuring relevance of programs to the country's needs as per National Education Sector Plan of 2008. Speaking on the sidelines of a press briefing on Tuesday, MUST Director of Finance and Investment MacDonald Heuge said only a portion of the yield earned therefrom will be used to support tuition fees and living expenses for needy students.
The MUST Endowment Fund is a mechanism that the university has come up with for trying to create sustainability in terms of finances. And how it will work is it is a pool of gifts that we will receive from sponsors, which will be invested as a pool, and we will be paying from that pool a portion of the interest that we generate for the utilization of activities that we agree with the donors. Principally, it will be supporting scholarship for students. So if we have people supporting us in this endowment fund, a good portion of that resource will be used to support these students, their tuition fees as well as their upkeep. It will also be used for research and innovation. We believe as a university, it is time that we engage in research that benefits communities around us.
MUST's Institute of Industrial Research and Innovation Director David Mkwambisi said as a result of inadequate financial allocation, the university has difficulties implementing planned activities, thereby affecting realization of its mandate. MUST is planning to launch the endowment fund on Saturday, 10th July, with a fundraising golf tourney at Irongo Golf Club with more than 80 teams participating, and thereafter a dinner where the Vice President, Dr. Saulos Chilima, will be the guest of honor at both functions.
Livingstonia Synod of the CCAP says leaders in the country should learn from the life of former President of Zambia, late Kenneth Kaunda, who it described as humble. The Synod's General Secretary, Reverend William Tembo, said politicians in the country only show their humility during campaign period, but change once voted into power. Sam Kalimira has a report.
Reverend Tembo was speaking during special prayers which the Synod conducted in memory of Kaunda, who according to the Synod was the son of the soil. The Synod leader said the country is struggling to develop because politicians forget where they are coming from and become proud of themselves.
Political leaders, so to say, some of the leaders in different countries, those who left their people behind, and they forgot who put them into power by being arrogant. So arrogant is an evil, it's a sin. And one of the things that probably has led to the life of Dr. Kaunda to be so humble was that he never forgot his background as a Christian.
Former Vice President Kumbo Kajali, who patronized the prayers, said the life of Kaunda should be a mirror of all politicians.
I am very humbled by the advice given by the General Secretary that those of us who are in politics, both serving in the presidential or any other position, should emulate President Kaunda. I agree with him, and definitely I will share this with my colleagues.
A young brother to the late Kaunda, James from Kadabe, said Kenneth's father, David, was from Kadabe, but he settled in Zambia after the Synod sent him to evangelize from Karonga Mission.
It was a family, it's a deep shock to me, if you are asking me. It's a deep shock.
Other notable people who spoke during the prayers were Malawi Congress Party Vice President Helen Kandawire and Democratic Progressive Party DPP Vice President Gudo Gondwe. Meanwhile, the Synod has said it will construct a university of fisheries at Bandawe Mission in respect of David Kaunda, who had a dream to establish a university for the Synod. Kenneth Kaunda died on June 17 this year.
Blantyre Central Church, a branch of Pentecost International Christian Church, has given 200 blankets to the elderly in Bangwe, Blantyre. The donation is part of the Christian Social Responsibility Project for the church. Tembeka Kumalo has a report.
Southern Region Pastor for Pentecostal International Christian Church, PICC, Francis Gama, says the donation was to fulfill their mandate as a church of giving hope to the hopeless. He says the elderly need support in different ways.
We started supporting this group. In March, we had a gathering where we provided some food items to them. And then we learned about one particular gogo who had nowhere to sleep. And we mobilized some resources. We constructed a house for that gogo, which we presented in May. And then there was that request that as we are approaching winter, the issue of blankets is a very critical issue. So by the grace of God, we have been able to mobilize resources and to buy blankets for each of the agogos. So in terms of background, it's in line with our mission and mandate as a church, as Pentecost International Christian Center.
Pastor Lois Banda said the program is ongoing. Alice Genti, one of the recipients, held the church for the donation. She says she is facing a number of challenges while raising her grandchildren. I am very happy because this donation has come at the right time, winter time. I am excited even though there are many things I lack. I now have one less problem to worry about. I am grateful for the ministry I pray at, for they uplift me and give me hope. For this, I know I am saved by God. I know the goodness and the love of God. In 2015, the elderly formed a group which Loveness Brown has been helping them with various items.
That report by Tembeka Kumalo, taking us to the end of the bulletin for now, but before we go, the headlines again. Parliament has passed the controversial Labour Relations Amendment Bill as opposition legislators storm out of the House in protest. The Ministry of Health announces enforcement of Level 3 COVID-19 restriction measures as cases continue to rise. And organizations in the country's education sector bemoan Malawi's continuous dependence on donors to run the sector. Remember, you can get more on these and other stories by visiting our website www.times.mw, liking our Facebook page Times360 Malawi, and following us on Twitter at Times360 Malawi. Remember to wash your hands regularly, observe social and physical distance, and mask up. Stay safe. You've been with me, Ronald Impaso, and I wish you a lovely night.